Today I'm going to give you the top 10 dialogue practices that you need to use in your book, short stories, anything that's going to be using dialogue. Hello everyone, welcome to Pen to Paper. I'm Leah Lindeman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series. Today we're looking at dialogue. Perhaps this is a strong suit of yours, perhaps not. But these are 10 practices that every writer needs to use when including dialogue in their short stories, novels, whatever piece that includes dialogue. So let's get straight to the point. I already have them written out, so I'm just going to be removing the pieces of paper as we go through each point. I thought using a whiteboard today would be helpful since there's 10 points I want to make about dialogue. So point number 1 is dialogue must have purpose. If you're just throwing in dialogue for the sake of dialogue, it's boring. It doesn't do anything. You think that you're making it normal. You know, we all have small talk here and there, but does it really advance our lives? How many of us question why we even do small talk in the first place? Maybe we're shy, we're stressed, we just don't know what to talk about, but all of us know at the end of the day, it's meaningless and it doesn't further our lives and it doesn't further our relationships with other people either. So if you don't like it in your life, don't put it in your character's life. Every piece of dialogue has to advance your plot, your setting, your character, your story in some sort of way. Everything needs momentum. And if your dialogue doesn't give the momentum that your story needs, axe it. Cut it out. It shouldn't be in there. Next point. Let me see if I can bring these down without ruining my writing. Okay. Number 2, avoid long narratives while in dialogue. So perhaps you have 2 characters and one of them is sharing a story. It could be a story of the past, long past, short past. Whatever the narrative is, keep it short and sweet and concise. And again, you shouldn't be throwing in backstory narrative for the sake of throwing it in. It has to be pertinent to the moment that they are having that dialogue. Maybe you need to reveal a clue or reveal a certain aspect of that character that couldn't be revealed without this conversation with the other character. But whatever it is, when you are doing long backstory narratives, it's always a good idea to keep it short. I've seen good long narratives, but it's very rare. So do yourself a favor. You're probably not a pro at this. Don't go long. Just keep it to the point and keep going forward. Next point that I have written here. Ooh, some of my writing is coming off. Okay. When you have 2 characters speaking together, the dialogue should be obvious. You don't have to write, he said, da-da-da-da-da, she said, da-da-da-da-da, he said, da-da-da-da-da, she said, da-da-da-da-da. It gets tiring. We kind of get the point that if you've set up the scene correctly, we know there's 2 people talking. And if you're giving each character a new paragraph when they're talking, and if you're also giving them a unique voice, which we'll talk about later, then we know who's talking. So we don't need to be said, he said, she said every time. You only use that when necessary, especially with 2 people talking. Because again, it's extra words that don't need to be there. If you've done your job well in using the correct wording for each character and making it specific to each of them, we're going to get who's speaking, and it's just going to move us through the story forward even better. Now, let's say you have, going to have to rewrite. I thought I was being smart doing this way. I didn't want to bombard you all at once with the 10. So If we have more than 2 characters, then you need to tag them. Even if you set up the scene saying there's 3 people or there's 4 people and this person is near this piece of furniture and this person is near the doorway, even though you do an amazing job giving them unique voice and character, which you should always do, you need to tag them every single time because there's more than 2. So now it's not as obvious who's speaking. Just do it. You're going to save yourself some heartache, and you're going to save your reader frustration and confusion over who's speaking. And you definitely don't want your reader to be confused, because then if they are confused, they're not going to want to keep reading your work, and game over for you. So tag your characters when there's more than 2 of them. Oh boy. I'm going to have to find a better way to do this. Okay. There. I don't need that one anymore. Okay. Number 5. Include important action during the dialogue. Now, if the character is moving in a certain way that the reader should know of, or they're performing a certain action during dialogue that your reader needs to be made aware of, or their face changes in a certain way that either may or may not go with the dialogue, all these nuances are incredibly important to relay to your reader a clearer picture of what the situation is. Whether it's a dramatic situation, a suspenseful situation, you want to give your reader the in on what the character's like and what they're doing or not doing that goes with their dialogue or doesn't. So, if your character has a certain tell that they are performing on their face or their body while they're speaking, then include that. If they are moving their hands in a certain gesture that relays a certain emotion despite their words, relay that. All this is very important to your readers. Next, I have, this is so important, I'm just going to write it out a little bit so you get it. Number 6 is every character should have a unique voice. Every character, even your side characters. Obviously, we're not going to be lingering on them as much as main characters, so you may have a little bit of grace there of not giving them as unique a voice, but you still should, because just look at all of us. We're all very different. Our mannerisms are different. The way we articulate our words are different. The way we say our phrases are very different. So you need to relay that in your writing, because although writing is fiction, you want it to feel real to your reader. And if it feels stilted or it feels very generic for all your characters, it doesn't make it interesting to your reader. And again, they're not going to want to continue with what they're reading. So make sure, come up with character sketches for your characters. If you're not too sure what makes them unique, come up with a backstory for them. You don't have to relay all that backstory in the writing. But if it helps you put together a picture, come up with a backstory, figure out how they look physically, what makes them tick, what do they like. The more you know about your character, the more it's going to be real to you, and the more you're going to relay that reality to your readers through unique voice. So do your research on your character. Don't just give us generic characters. Number 7 is be consistent with that character's voice that you've created. So don't mix up Joe and Jack, their characters, for whenever you feel like it. And just like your character's actions need to be consistent and need to make sense in the story, so does their dialogue. It's just that simple. So don't forget that. Number 8. Okay, this I'm going to have to rewrite. Now, some of your characters Okay. Some of your characters may have certain catchphrases or little quirks that they say. So, for example, in The Great Gatsby, you have Gatsby who says old sport a lot. But he's not saying it all the time. When you have characters that say certain things like that, that kind of set them apart from the rest of the characters, don't throw it in every single time they're talking. That's going to become very tedious. You want them to use that catchphrase when it's specifically needed or when a situation calls for it. And again, I can't tell you what that is because it's your story. So you need to figure out when your character would say that. Would they say that when they're happy? Would they say that when they're stressed? Would they say that when they see an old friend? And I'm not saying it's old sport. It could be whatever they want to say, whatever catchphrase you come up with for your character. It's a fun way to be unique with your character's voice, but just be careful that you don't use it too little so that it's not even a catchphrase. We don't even grasp that that's being used enough. And don't use it too much, though it's tedious and we're tired of hearing it. So you need to use it in moderation, just the right amount for it to be useful to the story and to advancing your character. Number 9. Okay, gotta write this out. All right, number 9. This is so important. Read your dialogue out loud. You should always kind of read your writing out loud, especially when you're editing, but please do yourself a favor. If you don't do it for setting or plot, anything but dialogue, read your dialogue out loud because it needs to sound normal. When we speak, it's not the way that we write. It's not usually conversational, fictional writing. There are some exceptions to that, but it is different. And you're also going to punctuate your dialogue differently. I didn't put that down, but that could definitely be depending on the way you structure your dialogue, because it's more relaxed, more conversational. You may not have the exact dialogue that you're going to have in the rest of the novel if it's not dialogue. But read your dialogue out loud to make sure, this is going to help you make sure that your voices have unique voices, that you are tagging them properly, that you don't have long narratives and you're not boring yourself. This is key to making sure that your dialogue is spiffy, witty, to the point, moving the story forward. You'll hear it in your voice. So do this. I would even say not even just one edit, 2 edits, all the edits, read your dialogue out loud. And the last thing I have, and of course I'm going to bring this up because I write historical fiction, is you're going to want to be true. Be true to the period that you're writing in. So if you are writing contemporary fiction, and that's what you're used to hearing, that's going to be intuition. It's going to be natural for you. It's natural intuition. You're going to probably do fine with this. If you are writing 50s, 1910s, older than that, then you need to make sure that you're aware of how people used to speak. Read a lot of literature from that time period to gain an understanding of the way people used to speak, so the phrasing and the structure of how they spoke, because it was very different back then than it is now, although there are some similarities still. But you definitely want to be true to the period that you're writing in, so you might need to do some homework if this is applicable to your writing. These are the 10 practices of dialogue. I hope this helps you. If it does, would you leave a comment down below and tell me which one was the most powerful one for you to hear, which one you maybe need to work on a little bit more. If you like this video, go ahead and like it, share it, and if you are listening to this on my podcast, well, I would love it if you could leave a review on Apple and perhaps share how this has helped you in your writing. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week with some more author content.